All right, let's get started. So, first thing I'm going to do is put my name and then description. I'm going to say computer uses algorithm to guess numbers from the user. All right, so we want to write a program. We want to welcome the user to the game. So we'll just say alert, welcome to the computer guessing game. The computer will guess a number from your head. Okay. Then we're going to prompt them for the maximum number in the range. So I'm going to need to store the maximum number. So I'm going to say let max num equals, we'll initialize it to 0, but we'll change it later. We'll say min num equals 0. We're going to need the minimum number. Um, we're going to need a number for the computer guess. Um, We're going to need a string for the user response. And let's see. And we're going to need a running number of guesses. So let num guesses equal 0. So what I've done is I've created all of my variables ahead of time. So I'm going to create a little comment up here. It says variables needed for the program. And we initialize them as well. Okay. Then I'm going to welcome them to the program. Now I need them to provide me a maximum number in the range. Um, that number is going to need to be a number, so we're going to convert it. So let's say let max num, or sorry, we've already created the maximum number variable, so we'll say max num equals, and then we'll convert whatever the user gives us into an integer, and we'll prompt them and say, what is the maximum number in your range? And then we'll convert that into an integer and we'll store it. Then we'll say, what is the minimum number in your range? So we'll say min num equals, and I'm actually going to copy this and paste it. And I'm going to just change the word maximum to minimum. Okay, so now we've gathered the maximum number and the minimum number. Now we need to alert them the game is starting. The game has begun. Now we need to have the computer guess the middle number in the current range. So let's think through this mathematically. If your range was from 50 to 100, um, then the number halfway would be the distance between them divided by 2. And so the distance between 50 and 100 is 50. Divided by 2 is 25. So 25 above 50 or 25 below 100 is going to give us the middle of the range. The middle of that range is going to be 75. So from the steps that I just took as I thought through it, I took the maximum number in the range and the minimum and subtracted off the minimum number of the range to figure out the distance. And then once I figured out the distance, I took that distance and added it to the minimum number of the range to get to the middle of the range. So I'm going to do that now in code, now that I've thought through how I want to do that. So here, I'm going to say, take, um, the distance is going to be the maximum number minus the minimum number. Um, and then we'll divide it by 2. So we'll say maximum number minus minimum number, and that is the distance. So I'm going to say let distance equal maximum number minus minimum number. Because I'm trying to make all of my variables be up here at the top, I'm actually going to remove that, and I'm going to say let distance equal 0. Then down here, I'm going to reuse the distance variable. I'm going to set it equal to the maximum number minus the minimum number. So that gives me the distance between them. Halfway is going to be that distance divided by 2. And so the guess is going to be the distance divided by 2. And then once I figured out what that is, I'm going to add it to the minimum number. So going through this again, 100 is the maximum number minus the minimum number of 50 gives us 50. And then we're going to take 50 and divide it by 2, which gives us 25. And then we're going to add that to the minimum number, which was 50. So 50 plus 25 is 75. And thus our guess is now exactly in the middle. Now that we've made that guess, we need to prompt the user to see if it's correct. So we'll say user response equals prompt the computer, and actually I'm going to use a formatted string here. Say the computer guessed the number, and then we're going to enter our guess here. So it guessed that number. Is that correct? Enter C for correct, H for too high, and L for too low. And then down below it says make sure to normalize your input, adjust it to handle both capital C and lowercase c. The way you do that is you say dot to lowercase. That converts everything to lowercase. So if they enter a capital C, it'll be a lowercase c. If they enter a lowercase c, it'll be a capital C. Based on the user's response, adjust the range accordingly. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if user response is H, then that means they guess too high. So if they guess too high, the new maximum becomes whatever the computer guessed last. So what we're going to do is we're going to say max num equals guess. Else if user response is L, if it's too low, the new minimum becomes whatever the computer guessed. So we'll say min num equals guess. And then finally, we'll say else if user response is correct, then we'll set both the min num equal to the guess and the max num equal to the guess. And then we'll have an else here, and we'll just alert not a valid response. Okay. And then it says repeat the process of guessing the middle number and adjusting the range until the computer gets the correct number. So we need to repeat the process from 5 all the way to 7. And we need to keep doing it until the computer gets the right number. So in other words, while the guess is not the same as the user's entered number, then we need to run the guess again. So to do that, let's do a while loop. So we'll have, and as a matter of fact, we always want to make at least one guess. So we're going to do a do while loop. So once we've alerted that the game has begun, we're going to say do, and then we're going to go all the way until the end of that if statement. And then to format your code, you can hold Alt Shift F, or on a Mac, it's Option Shift F, and that will format your code. So I'm going to do this while the guess is not equal to the sorry, we're going to run this while the user response is not equal to C. Because if the user response is C, then it's the number from the user's head. If it's not C, then we need to run this loop again. So while the user response is not C, figure out the distance between the maximum number and the minimum number, guess the middle number, prompt them if it's correct. If the user enters C, then we know our range is correct and we'll end the loop. If they didn't enter C, then we're going to adjust our range and adjust our range and run our loop again. That means the only way we can get outside of this loop is if we've guessed the correct number. So what we want to do is now we want to, so it says repeat the process of guessing the middle number and adjusting the range until the computer gets the correct number. Once the computer guesses the number, display the number of attempts it took. Well, we actually haven't been tracking attempts thus far. What we've done is we've alerted them, we've created our range, and then we've put in two numbers, and then we've guessed. And so once we make this guess, we actually probably want to increment the number of guesses. So we set our number of guesses to 0 at the start. So right here, I'm going to say increment guesses. And we're going to take user response, or sorry, we're going to take the number of guesses and we're going to increment it. All right. We've guessed their input. So now we can alert. Hooray. The computer guessed it. It only took num guesses, tries. Okay, let's save this and let's go test it. So I'm going to go live and it's going to say, welcome to the computer guessing game. The computer will guess a number from your head. So I'm going to go with 76. So what is the, and I'll use the range 0 to 100. So what is the maximum number in your range? 100. What is the minimum number in your range? We'll actually go with 1. So it says the game has begun. The computer guessed the number 50.5. Is that correct? Enter C for correct, H for too high, and L for too low. Well, my number was 76, so I'm going to say that that's too low. And then it said it guessed 75.25. Is that correct? It's still too low. And then it guessed 87.625. That's too high. 81.4375. That's too low. And this is probably going to go on forever and ever and ever because it's guessing decimal places and I want it to guess whole numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around that number. So let's come over here and instead of setting our guess equal to the distance plus the minimum number, we're going to round this. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to say guess equals guess.toFixed. And then it says, how many decimal places do you want? I want 0 decimal places, but you'll notice this returns a string. So we're going to have to convert this to a number. I've been using parse int and parse float, but you can also use the number function, and that will also convert it to a number. So we're going to take our guess, round it to 0 decimal places, turn it into a number, and now we'll try our code again. So we'll hit cancel, we'll reload the page. We're going to go with 76. What's the maximum number in our range? 100. What's the minimum? 1. Game has begun. Guessed 51. Is that correct? That is too low. It guessed 76. Is that correct? That is correct. And it says, hooray, the computer guessed it. It only took 2 tries. And so it looks like our code is working. Let's come over and do some cleaning up. So we've got our name and description. We've got the variables needed. We probably don't need this comment anymore, so let's get rid of that. We welcome the user, ask them to provide the number, display the alert. And then here, I'm going to add a comment that says calculating the mid guess. And then here, we're going to prompt them and see if it's correct. The user should respond with that. And then we're going to increment the guess. We don't need that anymore. We don't need that anymore. Based on the response, adjust the range accordingly. And then I'm going to remove those. We don't need those anymore. And up above the do while loop, I'm going to say keep guessing until you get it right. Until the computer gets it right. And then we're going to take this comment and it says once it does display that, and we're just going to move it above the alert. So now looks like we've cleaned things up nicely and our code is good to go. Hopefully you were able to come to a solution on your own. This is my solution. And that concludes this video. Thanks for watching.